Welcome everybody to tonight's home clinic. A home clinic is where we grab one quality coach and he presents on one specific subject for you guys to enjoy, and he usually does that from home. If you guys have been enjoying this series and would like to see it continue, we want to ask that you would like and subscribe below. Those things certainly help us to grow and is kind of that feedback to say this is a good thing. Keep this coming. If you have a desire to present in the future, reach out to us on Twitter, DM us. That's at the Chief Pigskin. All right, without further ado, tonight's home clinic. How is everybody? Nate Albaugh here, assistant football coach at Unity High School in Tolono, Illinois, and alongside Tommy Denison. Did I say your last name right, Coach? I failed to ask you before we got rolling.
Yeah, you nailed it. That's it.
Well, good. Well, Coach Denison is the new offensive coordinator at York University, and as I've told you before, I'm trying hard to let Wednesday night be for Canadian football for as long as we can find coaches. And we've had a few coaches step up, and Coach Denison was kind enough to share with us tonight. So, Coach, your first year, you played in the CFL and have had various coaching stints, and recently have been kind of turning around offenses has been your thing, from offenses that have struggled to offenses that are succeeding. And tonight you're talking about a minimalist approach to offense. If you could just kind of, what's that little quick summary of what it is you're doing?
Yeah, so we use the term minimalist approach, but it really is just a focused approach to what we're doing and trying to make sure that we teach and we use teaching as a foundation tool to make sure that our kids understand. So our quarterbacks at the line of scrimmage actually do a lot more. So even though we say minimalist approach, we're really just talking about the package size of what we're running. But they're setting protections at the line of scrimmage and, heavily influenced in, setting who that is. And a lot of, in a lot of offenses, the center is responsible for a lot of those calls and checks. And we make sure that our quarterback's married and involved in that process as well. And then in addition to that, we're taking advantage of what the defense is giving us. So there's a pre-snap read, usually in the secondary, that we're looking at to determine which field zone we're going to attack, whether it be field, box, or boundary. So even though we're playing the Canadian game, today we're going to talk about things up until the last 6 slides or so in a way that I think translates really nicely to the American game too. And obviously I'm locked to my TV set on Saturdays watching college ball and on Sundays watching the NFL as well. So I think you'll see a nice translation between the two things. But the minimalist approach is really about teaching, making sure that our quarterbacks understand the core concepts of what we're teaching, and then simplifying the back-end execution to a 2-on-1 read when at all possible.
Okay. Now, if we came and visited practice on a Tuesday in the middle of the season, we'd find you. Is there a position you work most with? Are you a position coach within the offense?
No. So, I mean, obviously, quarterbacks are near and dear to my heart, and I'm involved in a lot of those things. I just think the best value that I can bring is to each of our coaches and coach them as they coach the players up. I think that's the best way to go. I think sometimes we get into a position as coordinators where we want to get really involved in one position and we lose, just like head coaches sometimes do, and they own one side of the ball, right? So we try and focus on coaching the coaches and letting them coach the players and going from there.
Well, Coach, I don't want to steal any more of your time. Without further ado, we're going to turn it over. Tommy Denison, OC at York University.
Appreciate it. Super excited for, obviously the opportunity to speak to everybody today. Let me just let the slide show up here. So there we go. Here's my contact information for those that are interested. You can connect with me on social media. I'll leave it again back up at the end as I wrap up, and I'll leave it on for a good 10 or 15 seconds again. But my Twitter, by all means, send me a direct message. Happy to connect with different coaches at various levels of football. Happy to, show what we do in terms of attacking with competitive advantage or attacking with a minimized set of plays. My email is there as well, should you need it. So the first thing I always like to do is give a reason why we've done different things. So an analogy for people, and I know there's probably going to be a lot of people who coach and teach at the same time in school. And so as you can see here, I've got 4 questions, and if you look from the left to the right, it's a grade 12 or a senior English question from a test, a quadratic equation on the right. We've got some Middle Eastern geography and some physics on the bottom right. And the reality is when we teach students, we don't give them this approach where we teach multiple subjects and throw them all on one test and hope that they do well. We ask for really focused attention. So we'll give them a book and we'll ask them questions about that book, or we'll focus on quadratic equations for 2 weeks, and then we'll give them a test at the end on that entry. Same thing for geography and physics. But when it comes to football, so often as coaches, we find ourselves trying to have solutions to every single problem that we could potentially face, right? And what ends up happening is we end up having all these concepts, all these plays that we want to run. And it's not to say that they're not great concepts. Obviously, there's value to all of the concepts that the coaches are trying to bring. That's why they're running them. It's just sometimes we lose focus on what we're trying to do, and then the players have some difficulty executing. So the reality is, when we look at the focused approach, this is 4 consecutive plays that we ran last year when I was at the University of Toronto against another school in the conference, Queens. And you can see that there are 4 different plays. We've chunked some yards off on a few of them. You've got a 1st and a 2nd and 5, another 1st and 10, and about a 2nd and 3. And the reality in this is, without knowing that the field zones have changed, it looks like the exact same defensive alignment against us in each of the pictures, right? So why do we need to have 47 different plays out of this formation to attack that defense when they're probably only going to give us 2 or 3 coverage contours during the course of the game? What we really need to do is get good at specific concepts, teach them really well, and then execute them on the back end. To show that I'm not just picking on, which is my alma mater, by the way, Queen's the team on defense right now. But to show that I'm not just picking on them, this is another game where we ran the same formation on 4 consecutive plays against one of the top athletic teams in the conference in Laurier Golden Hawks. And again, you can see in terms of coverage contour, we're getting a very, very similar look on each play again. So this idea that we need to have 47 ways to attack the defense when they're really only attacking us with 1 to 3 base concepts is the genesis behind the focused approach. And just to show that I'm not just picking on teams in my conference, even in the SEC, where here it is Texas A&M lining up against Auburn with 31 same formation on 4 consecutive plays again, and really getting one major look. Obviously, you can see in the bottom right corner, looks like the Sam's going to come either in the B gap or just off the edge. But for the most part, even that isn't going to provide any different challenges for. And to be honest, they attacked the exact same way we would probably attack as well, either RPO, bubble screen, or RPO all hitches, attacking the Sam backer and the field numbers, right? So it's really interesting. Football is football. Obviously, you can see some different formations across different countries and different games, but really we're all trying to do the same thing. But now it's just making sure that we're taking this focused approach. So a little bit about my background and where I've been over the last couple of years. So this was the St. Mary's turnaround from 2016 to 2017. So you can see I took over a team offensively that had scored 126 points in the previous year, was at the bottom of the conference and 24th out of 27 teams in the country in scoring. Points per game, 24th, total offense, 21st. So the overlying factor is we're between 21st and 24th in basically every major offensive category. And in our first year there at St. Mary's, we were able to go to 10th in scoring, almost doubling our production from 126 to 247, obviously points per game with it. Yards per game from 371 per game to 474. And it's just a very consistent approach. The only place that we didn't make a substantial growth was rushing attempts. We ran the ball about 30 times less, but when you look at the rushing yards per game, we had 6 more yards per carry. A lot of people think that in Canada, I'm one of those people who wants to throw the football a lot, and we do throw the football a lot. But if you look at our rushing yards per game, we're at 6.2 yards per carry, 4th in the country, where they were at 5.2 and 17th in the country the year before. Fast forward 2 years to last year at the University of Toronto, and a very, very similar opportunity. Another team that was in the 22nd to 25th category in every offensive category. Okay. We came in again, moved from 122, moved the needle to 222 points scored in 8 games. Yards per game up from 324 to 438. Led the nation in passing, as you can see here, passing yards at 2702 in 8 games, 337 a game. And then again, even though we went down in terms of rushing attempts, our rushing yards per carry went from 4.5 to 6 yards per carry, good enough again for 7th in the country. So very efficient when we run the football, although we don't do it a whole lot relative to, I guess, some of our competitors. What's really interesting, and obviously I'm going to build out to the now, the why, but I wanted to hook you guys in with what we've actually been able to accomplish. And that's since 2017 across the country, 27 teams, there's been 26 offensive coordinator changes. Not each team, but some teams obviously multiple times. You know, people get promoted, move on, all kinds of different things. But there's been 26 offensive coordinator changes since 2017. When you factor in the average plus minus, when a new coordinator comes into a program, they're averaging negative 10.9 yards per game relative to the person that they took over for. And there's a lot of reasons why that makes sense, right? Like, it takes time to gel, get to know your players, all those things. We've come into new staffs now and average plus 108.7 yards per game in that same period of time. So there's a substantial growth that we've had, and I think that is not following the trend of what other coaches have been able to accomplish. We're super excited about it and looking forward to obviously this transition at York as well. So there are challenges that we face, and I'm sure there's a lot of high school coaches listening today, and I think in a lot of cases, these are challenges that we all face, both at the university level, but as well as the high school level. The first is that the weeks just aren't that long. We're really locked into 3 practices a week. The first practice of the week that we get is usually a walkthrough, some sort of conditioning or, kind of runoff, recovery run with lots of film sessions. Then we get 3 main practices a week. And then of course the Friday walkthrough, which is, a pretty basic practice in terms of our overall getting into things. So we don't have that long of a week. In many cases, when we watch film, obviously it's very productive when we're in the room with the kids. But when we send them and give them film access and they go home alone, it's what are they getting out of the film session when they're with their teammates or when they're on their own in front of their computers. So that's a challenge, and we have to find a ways so that they're not less productive. One of the challenges we face, it isn't easy to master one variation of a concept like smash or over under, and those are a few of the ones that we're going to talk about today. Never mind, some teams that run 4 or 5 variations of smash. So those are challenges we face. And then ultimately, there is no magic formula to coaching. At some point, it's going to come down to straight execution. So our goal is to do as much of the legwork for our players and help them manage the process of learning, so that when they go out there, they just get to rely on their athleticism. So inside of those challenges, we've had some realizations. Obviously, the weeks are not that long, so let's maximize our time. Let's ensure that everything that we do fits into an idea of production and productivity. And we'll talk a little bit about that as we go forward. In many cases, film session, again, is not as productive. So let's guide them through assisted film study when they go home. Let's have tutorials built out for them, so when they go home, they have 7, 8 plays to watch based on their position. And they're marked up, whether it be in Huddle or DV Sport. We've had the chance to mark it up for them so that they're watching 7, 8 plays and they're getting something out of it. Yes, we're going to share successes on there along the way as well, but we're going to take corrections, and we're going to make sure that, if somebody wrong releases, it's corrected immediately. And then obviously when, they're done, we have in our software right now, we have quiz abilities. So after they've spent an hour on, we can see how long they've been on. It then sends a quiz to them, and they can answer the questions based on the corrections that they've gotten, so that we know that they're learning from what they've been taught. It isn't easy to master one variation. So the question that we always ask is, why do we need multiple variations of the same concept? If the corner's responsibility is deep third, his responsibility is deep third because he sees a vertical release. It's not like he's going to vacate his responsibilities at deep third. He's still going to hold on to what his job is, because if he doesn't, he's going to find himself on the bench from a defensive perspective as well. And then there's no magic formula. So let's focus on the core concepts and become really, really good at them. So what does this look like in practice, right? So when we talk about how do we maximize our time, recognizing that this is a base game plan, I suppose, and obviously not as frilly and broken out as I would give out to our players, but when you just kind of break it down to its lowest common denominator, this is what we're looking at: 3 runs, inside, outside zone, and draw. Play all hooks, smash, over, under, flood, verts, and post wheel. Post wheel being a 3-man concept with and out as well. And then the screen concepts, shovel, where we run it like quick speed option, but inverted. Tailback screen, hitch screen, bubble screen, and tunnel screen. So all concepts that everybody here would be familiar with, no different, just because we're in Canada, we're doing the same things. So recognizing that in each of our practices, for the most part, we're looking at 15 plays of Skelly, 12 plays of either inside run or sometimes team run, depending on the day and how much RPO we're managing, and then team of 15 plays. And I know there's a lot of people who say, well, we can fit in more than 15 plays, and we can fit in more than 12 plays and 15 plays. I think as we go forward with load management and the different things that we're learning about the human body, we recognize that, and our strength and conditioning coach, Sam Miles-Frank, she's fantastic. And always talking about how can we get our horses ready for Saturday, right? Make sure that they're ready to play. So when we look at this era of load management, recognizing that, yeah, we could all get more than 15, 12, and 15 plays in, but are our athletes going to be at their best for Saturday? So what's the balance between understanding the mental side of the game and the physical side of the game so that we're getting the most out of them? So when you factor in that they're getting 42 plays of competitive period inside of each practice, and we have 3 practices, they're going to get 126 plays. So if we recognize that we're running 13 plays and the majority of those plays can be run out of on both hash marks, and we can run them all out of 3 formations. So our core formations are 31, 23, and 33. So if I were to go into the United States model, NCAA model, NFL model, 31 would be 21 for you guys. So something that you can recognize. So we get the ability to have like an H-back or a tight end in there. 23 would be a little bit more of a spread, which you guys would recognize, probably something more like 2x2, but we stay away from that because the numeric advantage is almost nil. Teams can go 6-man box to defend you and still triangle off both sides. So it becomes really difficult to attack. And then 33 for us is a tremendous formation, especially when we have an athletic quarterback who can attack a deficient box. And we're just looking for, obviously we're looking for, and I'll explain how numbers works for us in a little bit, but we're looking for even numbers when we're throwing or a +1 situation in the box. So if we take each of those factors and we say, okay, we're running 13 plays and we're going to run them on each hash, that's 26 plays. And then we've got 3 formations that we're running them out of. That would be 78 plays. If we run those each twice in the week, that would be 156. Now, obviously, that's not how we do things, right? We don't just multiply our plays out and recognize. And obviously, there's going to be more emphasis on certain plays than not. But the reality is we can't run each play twice in each direction in a week. We're 30 plays over what our total is. So if we're taking a minimalist approach and we only have 13 plays out of 3 formations, and there's many teams who are running, especially in Canada, 9 to 11 formations in a game, and in the States, 5 to 9 formations. How do you get through everything and give your kids a really good assessment at how good they are at understanding the play and then executing the play as well, when you may only get to run it once in a practice environment against one look? Or maybe you end up running 7 or 8 times and you focus a whole lot of resources and energies on that look and may not even get the look that you want to run it against the game. So there could be some wasted practice moments, right? So we need some solutions. So the first thing we need to realize is, well, we need to do less. It's important to take a focused approach to corrections and celebrate successes. So we'll show how we do that. We've talked a little bit about that already. We need to align our plays with our drills to save our players' legs and give them simulated opportunities. So we'll share some drills that we've done for that. And we need to attack with a numeric competitive advantage on every single play. And we'll show the actual value. I think it's actually quite shocking when you see it. So the first thing is, well, we need to do less. It's important to focus on corrections and celebrate successes. So we talked about already, when we send our players home, we need to give them direction to watch film. Obviously, we're going to get the film right after practice. We're going to watch it for an hour and a half with them. But then they get to go home, and there's going to be more time that they need to spend on football as well. They can't just come back a day later, for us, especially at the university level, and expect that they're going to just be ready to play on Saturday. So we're going to do things like this. And unfortunately, I have the unenviable, I guess, task of onboarding to a new job in a pandemic environment. So unfortunately, I don't have access to DV Sport the same way that I would if I was in the office every day. So unfortunately, I didn't get the chance to draw this up on actual videos for you. If I had, that's what this would be. These would be videos that move, and you would see, in this particular case, markings just like this, so that we can teach corrections to our players. So they go home, they have 5 to 7 plays, they work through the corrections, they understand them. Once they're done, once they've put their 45 to 1 hour of study in, there's a quiz that pops up, and then we quiz them, and we can understand what level of information they've retained, understand, and can execute. The second part is we need to align our plays and our drills to save our players' legs and give them simulated opportunities. So this is a great drill that we like to run, and I'm sure a lot of teams out there are running it, but it's something that we've kind of really hung our hat on. So this gives us an opportunity to have 3 quarterbacks ready, and we're basically playing that variation of 2-on-1 fast break. Here we've got smash concept, and you can see we've got, with dotted lines here, we've got the stems of the routes that they're not going to be running because we're trying to save their legs. They're just going to run the tail ender of their route when the quarterback hits the back step of his drop and is ready to throw. And the quarterback's just going to make a decision off the corner. who could 2 for 1, obviously. Same thing here. We've got 2 receivers running over under. This is their stems. Obviously, you see a spike release, which we can do in Canada. You can do it in the States as well because you have the one person who can motion, but obviously in Canada, we can actually do things where we have people come together in motion. You'll see it a little bit on the film that we show at the end. But that's really the only difference you're going to notice today, and obviously the 12th man on the field. The final one is the flood concepts to the boundary. Obviously, we'd be running the top off the route over here with a vertical concept, but these are the 2 people that are going to stress the 2 weak boundary defender, whether it be the will pushed out or, you know, the safety, the boundary safety rolled down. Okay, so for you guys, again, whatever he does, he can't be wrong. So the quarterbacks just get to the, you know, whether it be gun and 3, catch, rock, step, throw. These are all gun and 3 drops, so they would execute their gun and 3, and then they can throw the football. In addition to just obviously catching and throwing at the top of their stem, we can introduce different drills inside of the 2-on-1 fast break drill. So these are some of the drills that we incorporate before our quarterback throws. So it gives us some layers to the drill so that they can work on obviously integrating some of their drops and pocket management tools before they throw the football. So here's our quarterback working a few of these drills. So the first one's just a step out drill. So he'll step out with his back foot, and then he'll throw the 2-on-1. This was filmed during the pandemic, obviously, so you realize social distancing is being done, and obviously there are no receivers on the back end. The second drill, obviously, is now the snake drill. So again, we have a false step on the first one, but he does a really good job of rebounding and working with his back foot to step. Our receivers would break now, and they would just do the tail enders, and we'd throw the ball at that point. Okay. The third one, for those who love Tom Brady, we've called this the Tom Brady drill. So he's going to kick back and work pocket management as he works around. Receivers go now, and he 2 for 1 breaks at the very end. So we can work any of those variations at the top of the drop for the quarterbacks. The other thing that we've been working on too, if we have more than 3 quarterbacks, obviously we run out of field zone space, but we can have 1 quarterback on each end, working those same footworks and then breaking into scramble rules for him, not throwing the ball downhill, but working into a downfield run where we're working acceleration, deceleration, stick steps at the very end. So we've worked with our strength and conditioning coach on that to incorporate some of the athletic ability things that we ask of our quarterbacks to do from that perspective. So we've talked about the final one, and this is such an important one for us. And it's not something I'm going to speak a lot about our rules, just because when we start talking about rules and responsibilities, not everybody is doing it our way. And we don't want to give away too much of the intelligence of who we're reading and how we're reading them, because a lot of different people are doing them differently. And obviously some of our competitors could understand who we're keying off. But what we can do is show why attacking with a numeric advantage is important. So the first column here is the offensive teams. So St. Mary's is SMU and Toronto. Those are the 2 schools that I've coached at. So there's a minimum of 2 games for every team in the spreadsheet. Obviously St. Mary's and Toronto, there's a substantial amount more games. Some of these teams have 3 or 4 games in here as well. We're just building out this spreadsheet now more and more. Optimally, they'll all have 8 games by the time it's all broken down. So the first column, and anything in red, is when the team attacks without a competitive advantage. So the first column is yards per play. So when teams are attacking without a competitive advantage, what does that mean? They throw to an area where if you have 3 receivers, there's 4 defenders. 2 receivers, there's 3 defenders. 1 receiver, there's 2 defenders. If they're running the ball, if there's 6 defenders in the box, you only have 6 people. So 5 to block with the running back, right? And you've attacked the box where they're +1. So obviously, you could be running zone read and hopefully reading the end, but there could be some busts involved in there as well. But we factor in all those things. So if there's 6 and they run the ball, obviously that would be considered not attacking with a competitive advantage. So what attacking with a competitive advantage means is the team is running at a situation where there's +1 in the box. So if we have an H-back and a tailback, that would count as 7 with our 5 linemen. And we want to run into situations with 6 defenders, right? If they've added in a 7th defender, then we want to obviously RPO one of them and throw the ball in behind off of that, okay? Throwing the ball, we want to throw into situations where we're even numbers. So if we have 3 receivers to one side, including anybody vertically and in behind, we only want to throw at 3 defenders, right? So they can't +1 us in the coverage, run any match concepts, okay? Those are things that we do not want to face against. It's just too difficult, right? And the numbers are going to tell that story. So the first thing you can look at, all teams across the conference, when they attack with a competitive disadvantage, they're averaging 4.62 yards per play. the time to throw for the quarterbacks actually goes to 2.49 seconds. And the quarterback's completion percentage when they don't have a competitive advantage is 47.9%. They throw interceptions on 2.68% of their passes. And this is the number of times that this is happening in the conference. I'll actually show what that means when we get to the positive situation. So this is the positive situation. This now means they're attacking with a competitive advantage. So all our teams in the conference, when attacking with a competitive advantage, okay, are averaging 9.41 yards per play. The quarterback only holds the ball for 1.94 seconds. There's no second window throws almost exclusively. The ball's coming out clean almost all the time. You can see the quarterback's completion percentage goes from 47.9 to 73.5. The quarterback's interception ratio drops from 2.68% to 0.96. And again, this is the win-loss percentage. We'll talk about what that means. So one of the things before we move on to it, I want to note that we're no different from what we get when we attack with a competitive advantage than our competitor, the teams that we're facing. In fact, what it does show is that we're actually less athletic than our opponents. So our number when we're attacking with a competitive advantage in these two schools is substantially less than our opponents when they attack with a competitive advantage. The difference is, though, we're attacking with a competitive advantage 79.89% of the time at St. Mary's and 78.03% of the time at Toronto. Now we're targeting 85% of the time. Our competitors, and I've blacked them out because I don't think it's fair. They're not on this call to defend. So they're attacking anywhere from 16.39, 18, 28, 34, 17, so on and so forth. And then these are the factored out numbers when you look at it. So even though you can see we're less athletic than our opponents in both situations, when it comes into the grand total, suddenly our number of yards per play is now amongst the best in the conference and the country. And that's because we just consistently attack with a competitive advantage on every snap. It's so important to us. It's all we teach, okay? It's all we focus on. We do focus obviously on back end as well, but it's so important. All of our off-season responsibilities are talking about competitive advantage and working to numbers. And there are strict rules that we follow. So I think it's eye-opening to see what the opportunities are, and right down to touchdown interception ratio. To know that we're the only team, if you look at it, that threw interceptions when in a competitive advantage, and part of that is because of the sample size. We throw the ball in a competitive advantage so much that there's going to be things like tipped balls, batted balls that impact us. But again, when you're not waiting for second window throws, when you're not throwing into 3-on-4 environments, it's a lot easier to control your destiny that way. So if we look at our concepts now inside of that, and we'll show some of the things, and I'll actually show how numbers work on the back end. These are the concepts that we're focused on for the most part. So you'll notice that actually, if you look on if you get a chance to go back and you look at that slide about halfway through when we did a mock game plan, those are the main concepts that we run for the most part. I'm going to break down 3 of them today. The first one's all vert. It's very similar to how many teams in the States. In fact, when I played at a Division II school in the PSAC, we ran this concept. It's a concept we run in Canada. Obviously, the climb route, it's a little wider field in Canada that we've got to climb across the free safety. But the number 3 receiver, his first job is to cross the safety's face as quickly as it can and climb vertical to the opposite hash mark. Okay, the number 2 receiver has to take an inside release off the number 2 defender and get up the boundary side seam. Okay, it has to be an inside release because we need the number 2 defender's eyes to turn inside so that he can't see the number 1 receiver who's going to replace him if he's playing man. The number 1 receiver is going to read off the number 2 defender. So if the number 2 defender carries vertical with the number 2 receiver, he's going to snap his route to an in. Okay, he's going to go to the vacated spot on the field that has been left by the number 2 defender. If the number 2 jams and releases, we're going to run a fall out to the sidelines. Okay, not a comeback. He's going to turn inside, plant his foot, and work backwards to the sideline, staying away from the number 2 defender. The other reason we need to inside release from the number 2 defender is because the corner can collapse down over top of, and especially in the Canadian field where it's wide, the corner can collapse down over the top and take this throw away. Okay, so if we release outside, we've worked right to the corner who's going to be collapsing down to us. So here's this play effectively on video. And if you notice, we're going to work to the boundary here. As you've noticed, the free safety's moved over to the field, thus giving the 4-on-3 to the field and just giving us a 3-on-3 to the boundary here. So this is telling you why we're working to the boundary. Again, the number 3 receiver is going to cross the free space as quickly as possible. Sorry, I thought I pushed pause and I pushed rewind. So number 3 is going to try and cross the free space as quickly as he can. He's obviously inside at number 2, the number 3 defender. Our number 2 receiver is going to inside release off number 44, and our wideout is going to be reading off of 44 as well. So if 2 inside releases and 44 lets him go, our wideout will fall out to the sidelines. Okay. The quarterback is reading the free safety on this throw. As the free gets taken away, so that's the 2-on-1 fast break that we're running here. As the free safety stays with the occupied number 3 receiver coming across, we should throw down the seam to number 2. Obviously, in this situation, you're going to see that the corner collapses down hard. So for us, the throw has got cloudy from the outside. So we're going to go outside and replace that corner with the throw, which will be to the wideout who's fallen out, which is why it's so important that our number 2 receiver runs the inside release. Because if he doesn't, he's going to bring the number 2 defender right to the throw. So I'll play it out now so you get a chance to see how it plays. Ooh, sorry about that. Well, technical difficulties. I'll fast forward just to the point of decision here. So you can see at this point here, the quarterback's ready to throw, and now he's stepping up hard because he feels the corner stepping down. So as he steps up in the pocket, okay, he's now felt it get cloudy from the outside, and he's replacing the outside with the throw. Here comes the throw, on target. We've got the ball to our athlete now in space. He's got about 10 yards of space. We're in the 2-minute drill at this point. We've got to score to take the lead. So we catch the ball here, and then obviously we get out of bounds. So important for us to stop the clock, especially up here in Canada, although it's important everywhere. Our rules to stop the clock are very advantageous inside at 3 minutes here. We have a 3-minute warning as opposed to a 2-minute warning in the NFL. Flood concept is another concept that we run. We run it with a spike release. In order to run a spike release in the States, obviously one of your receivers would have to be in a motion across the line of scrimmage. We have the advantage where these 2 receivers can actually work together. As you noticed on the last play, our guys were rolling downhill a little bit before the snap. So X has a mandatory outside release go, our wide out to the boundary side. He's going to outside release go, and he's got to do that because he wants to turn the corner's eyes and head away from the flood concept that's coming in behind him. The W is going to tighten his split on his waggle here, and he's going to work with the Y with a spike release. So if we're in the red zone, obviously we get a natural rub action here. And then the Y is going to run a 2 to 4 yard out right off his hip, okay, getting that natural rub. We're going to stress, in Canada we call him the weak half, but he's the number 2 defender weak. If he turns and runs with the W, we're going to take obviously the natural rub and throw to Y right now. Otherwise, we're stretching him in his zone drop off the quick out and the deep out. If as we come out of our drop, the Will, the number 3 defender, has tried to undercut us and wall off hard, and we feel him in the throwing lane, we can stick our foot in the ground and backdoor cut off the Will. Okay? The quarterback's read, it's a 3-step drop, gun and 3, and all we're doing is reading off the weak half. If he sinks, we take the Y right now. Otherwise, we play the 2-on-1 game with him. If he jumps down on the Y, we throw the W. If he sinks with the W, we throw the Y. So we're going to show a demonstration of this play. Obviously, it's going to be to the top of the screen right now. And again, you're going to notice we're true 3-on-3 over there. Okay. So you've noticed we're reading off the number 2 defender over here right now. Okay, as he sinks, we're going to throw to number 3. So a couple things that we didn't do a very good job on this play. If you look at our wide out at the top of the screen, he's flexed way too far out. So he's going to get walled off right out of bounds, which allows the corner to come off and actually help make the tackle. If he had tightened his split, knowing that he wants to turn the corner's eyes vertically with him as he runs, we would have been in a much better situation because we would have been 2-on-1ing the half, and we would have had a lot more space after the catch. So here's the point of the decision for the quarterback. We've seen that the number 2 defender sink. and the ball should be out of our quarterback's hands quickly here on the quick out. We're able to stick the throw on him. As you see, we turn upfield, but unfortunately the corner has walled our wide out of bounds, and he's now in a position to help rally down and make the tackle. So what should have been a first down throw is now turned into about an 8 or 9 yard gain. And the tight, you can just see the quarterback's drop. Should be either he goes to gun and 1, thinking he's going to get it out quick. He has the option to go gun and quick 3 as well. The last concept that we're going to talk about today is over-under. Again, if post-dig drag, our concepts on the field side that you'll see today, because we run it in Canada, we have the ability to motion our back out a little bit differently than what you see in the States. So we're going to take our back and push them to the field, and we're going to read off the Sam. If Sam chases the back, we high-low the Mac who's in the box right now. So we're in a 23 formation to do this. Okay, so we'll talk about that. But again, we get the same spike release that we did on the last play. That's the reason why I showed you the 2 plays, because we're spike releasing on both. Y is now outside releasing on the spike release, and W is coming off for the natural rub. Okay, as we stem vertically for 10 to 12, and we snap our dig, obviously we can gear down and zone. Our W is going to carry through at 2 to 4 yards, and we get the 14 to 16 yard dig. The quarterback's going to peek the Sam, so it's almost like a pass option as opposed to run pass option. We're just taking either dumping the ball to the back in the flat right now based off what the Sam does, or if Sam chases, we're high-lowing the Mac between W and Y to explain the read a little bit. And this is the last play that we have here for you. So you can see we're going to be throwing to the field, and you can see they're in a walk down, show zero blitz situation. We don't believe they're coming because he's hard inside the hashes. This team liked to show when they were in cover zero, he would actually vacate and be 4 to 5 yards outside, completely tracking where we were. So we believe they were going to fall out, although this is one of those plays that we would not have to convert against cover zero anyways. We've got a quick dump option. So what we're reading right here is the edge player. If he turns and runs with our running back into the flat, we're now going to high-low the next defender, which is the Mac linebacker. Sorry about that. Get you back to the point of decision. So you can see 37 is clearly chased here, which is now opening us up to read off 47, right? So here's the shallow coming in underneath, and here's our dig coming in behind, okay? So 37's forced us to read off of 47. And you can see 47 is now about to attack downhill on the shallow cross, which is going to open up the dig in behind it for us. One of the things that we don't do a very good job at here is snapping our route off. We're still drifting downfield. Okay, we're fortunate to get this completion because obviously we've moved right into the free safeties territory. We want to snap this off and work back downhill a little bit if we can, but at least flattening off as we go. We're drifting a little bit here, which could have cost us. The tight, I think, does show something, so I'll show the tight on this one. Again, you see the Sam 37 off the edge in this particular case. So we're reading 37 with 83, treating it almost like a screen where we catch and throw. Otherwise, we're off 47 with the high-low. So you can see 37 peeled off and left, which allows us to high-low 47 here. And you can see the quarterback's peaking right now to 37. He does not have leverage. So now we're high-low right here. Okay, you can see 47 has attacked our underneath, which has opened up this huge window right here for our quarterback to throw to our 10 to 12 yard dig. He does a good job of sticking it on his body. As I promised at the end, I would put my contact details up one last time. So I'll leave this up here for 15 seconds, and that'll be the end of the presentation today.
Coach, man, thank you so much for doing that. I truly enjoyed it, and my eyes were really open to the advantage and those statistics within that chart of attacking with that numeric advantage. It's something that I think I'd been aware of, but yet certainly had not been aware of to that extent. So I appreciate the work that you guys did to get that type of information. A question I had about that was, a couple of those teams were attacking with a numeric advantage. It was like below 20%. There were several teams. What is it that's leading some offenses to losing so badly? Is there a certain type of offense that's lending to that?
Yeah, so it's a great question that you ask, and there is. So there are certain formations that do not give you any competitive advantage. In the United States, 2x2. Okay, I know it was a huge trend up until even still a lot of teams run it, but you can go 4-3 wide and still get too high, and be in a situation where you're 4-on-3, or sorry, you're 3-on-2, 3-on-2, and still get 6 in the box, right? So it really becomes difficult when you can't create. There are formations where you do, no matter what you do, you can't get a competitive advantage unless they play 2-man, right? And then which case you get the box and they play cover 0. So the advantage in a formation like that, 2x2, and it's the same in Canada, 2x2, it's an H-back. The advantage in those formations is so minimal because the only time you get that advantage is when they play 2-man or cover 0. And then you still have to attack the middle of the field when you get cover 0, or the box when you get 2-man. And the reality is that, a lot of coaches, they don't attack numbers, they attack down and distance. And attacking down and distance is a very, very dangerous proposition, right? Because if it's 2nd and 7 and we need 7 yards to keep the foot, it's so tempting to go for those 7 yards and call a play that we know are going to generate 7. The reality is, though, we're running and throwing into a situation where we're outnumbered. So our chances for 0 yardage or negative yardage plays, that's where the sacks happen. That's when quarterbacks scramble, strip sacks, fumble, because the quarterback's waiting for the 2nd window throw, the 3rd window throw, and then they get sacked and we don't get anything positive out of it. So we've gone into those situations and we've just said, look, if you're going to eliminate the box, and just because we say we're attacking box, to be clear, doesn't mean we're necessarily running, right? We can run screens, we can run crossers. Those are all great ways to attack the box as well. We're just focused on attacking the box in those situations, or the field or boundary, depending on where it is.
Now, a lot of this, I can see that obviously a great deal of thought has gone into it. When did you start doing some of this statistics study and analysis on these types of the number advantage?
Yeah, and a lot of thought's gone into this. 15 years. It's over the last couple of years, a lot of people have been obviously really impressed with some of the results that we've got. One of my favorite quotes is that when you really look at overnight sensations, they really aren't, right? A lot of work has gone into all of these things. And a lot of different, we've used a lot of different teams as our blank canvas to try and understand. And there's been a lot of mistakes made. And I think that's probably the biggest challenge to doing these things. Like, the idea is we have to win now. We have to do things that are giving us, and if we don't have answers to a specific problem along our journey of learning, there's no time for it in this era of win now, right? If you ask me a question, I'm working my way through it, that's not good enough in a lot of cases. Even though it's going to yield better results in time, there's a lot less tolerance for those things. So, I encourage people to learn, grow, adapt. We've developed rules and responsibilities and all of these things where we can look at a single defender and determine where we should be attacking in all of the formations that we run. But we run a lot less formations than almost every team we play because of that.
Well, I've made a commitment to myself to not be afraid to ask questions I don't understand. Sometimes I used to not ask because I was embarrassed to ask. At one point you said 2x2, not advantageous because they can triangle both sides or something to that effect. And I was wondering what you meant by that, triangling both sides.
So, if you have 2 receivers out in the concept, right? The last thing that we want is the ability. So if you've heard Coach Saban talk about Ripley's match, what he's really talking about is +1ing you on both sides is really what it is. So that no matter if you're running in breaking or out breaking routes, there's somebody waiting on you there. And the ability to do that basically is to have somebody covered down over each person and a hide person over the top. It looks like 2-man in its shell, but it doesn't necessarily end up turning into that. Based on what routes you end up running, you're going to get multiple looks and variations. But the only way he can do those things, or people can do those things, is if they have more numbers at the point of attack than you do. And if you're attacking into a 2-on-3 situation, he's able to have those 2 low and then the high triangle part, so it looks like a triangle, right, in its defense. So that's what I mean by triangling off. But we see that, and we're just not willing to attack there. And so what ends up happening is there's a great amount of discipline that comes to, obviously, in times we want to throw the ball all over the park, and teams have emptied the box out, and we've, maybe we don't have the tools up front to run the ball against them still, but we have to find ways that are unique to attack the box with what players we do have to be successful.
Now, okay, I'm going to ask one last question here.
Sure.
You said when you were showing your numeric stat chart that you guys were 70-something%. Your goal was really 80, right? So that's saying that 20% of the time you understand that you're not going to attack at that competitive advantage. What is that 20% where you're saying, I'm okay with not doing it in blank situations?
Yeah, so it's actually 85, so it's 15.
That's the goal.
And so we're not quite there yet. I mean, we were at 78, 79. I don't want to make it look like we were at 100% of what we were trying to achieve, because we weren't. And there's still a lot of growing and learning that has to be done on our end. Really, there is no acceptable amount of loss, right? Like, we want to be at 100% truly. We just have to understand that things do happen. Like, for instance, a quarterback can make a wrong read, even though he's done everything right to attack the right field zone. So let's say, for instance, we're running smash at a 3-on-3 situation and the corner bails, and we should throw the hitch to the wideout, right? But the quarterback, for whatever reasons, double clutches, doesn't see it clear. Somebody gets his hands up and he doesn't throw the football. Now he's forced to scramble and run in and attack the box in a situation that we're no longer attacking the field side anymore, where we do have the advantage. So that's even though we tried, because we're always trying to attack the right the right field zone. So even though we're trying to still attack the right field zone, we didn't get it done. So that is something that could be done better. Sometimes a call comes in from the coach on the sideline. Sometimes I bust. I'm like everybody else, right? We have to be a no huddle team so that we can do this. Obviously, we can't call plays in the huddle because, what are we looking at when we're calling a play in the huddle? Nothing. So we need to get out line of scrimmage to see how the defense lines up. Then we put rules and responsibilities in our quarterback's hands. So if defenses want to be, if they want to move pre-snap and try and change the look, we can get in and out of things at a moment's notice. We compartmentalize plays. So we only have to change the field zone that we're attacking. So for instance, let's say you're giving up the field in 21 to us or 31 to us, and all of a sudden you want to add in the edge player and you have a high free safety over the top. Well, if we see the low defender going from 4-on-3 to 3-on-3 as he adds in the box to take the box away, the quarterback can just immediately change to bubble screen to the boundary and kick it out quick. We don't need to change every part of the play. We just need to change the one element of the play that we're throwing to. So long as obviously we're protected up front still. Like, there's obviously times where we have to change two compartments where, let's say we weren't going to do something that we were protected up front. We would also have to change the protection or put ourselves into an RPO as well to make sure that we're accounting for all variables up front. So those are things that we put in our quarterback's hands. We never just ask them to go out there and free spirit call plays, but we do ask them to be the filter for us if they're trying to do things on defense that change the picture just before the snap.
Wow, Coach, this is great. I feel blessed to have listened to this. All of you coaches that got lucky enough to stumble across this video or seek it out, I think that we all have gained an advantage just by listening to you, Coach. Guys, you've listened to Tommy Denison, OC at York University. Coach, any closing thoughts before I sign us off?
I appreciate the time and the opportunity, and I've watched some of the videos on your platform on YouTube, and they've been fantastic. And in this era of everything that we're dealing with is a society on both sides of the border and worldwide. Tools like this and football as an opportunity to come together and learn together, it's just so awesome. So thank you for the opportunity. And even when we see that there's two completely different games being played on the border, we see that there are so many similarities and things that we can do and learn from each other. So really appreciate the time and look forward to seeing some of the videos on your site in future.
Wow. Well, you guys, I hope that you enjoyed that as much as I did. Look up Coach Denison on Twitter, YouTube, shoot him an email if you'd like. The rest of you guys, make sure you like the video or subscribe, or both would be fantastic. And we'll see you, tomorrow night. We'll be back with another home clinic.